It was the summer of 1984, and the basketball world was witnessing one of the most intense rivalries in NBA history. The Boston Celtics and the Los Angeles Lakers were once again face-to-face in the NBA Finals. This wasn't just another matchup. It was a collision of legacies, philosophies, and two of the greatest players the game had ever seen. On the Celtics side stood Larry Bird, the tough, fearless forward known for his sharp mind and even sharper shooting. Bird wasn't just a player, he was Boston's heart, soul, and fighting spirit wrapped into one. And across the court, leading the Lakers was none other than Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the veteran center with unmatched skill, a calm demeanor, and a skyhook that seemed unstoppable. While Bird brought grit and hustle, Kareem brought grace and dominance. The opening period of the game began like any other final showdown: tight defense, smart plays, and a crowd roaring with every basket. Robert Parrish missed from inside, but Larry Bird was there, grabbing the offensive rebound and finishing with ease. Moments later, Bird drained a classic fall-away jumper, showing early on that he came to battle. As the Celtics fought to stay ahead, Kareem responded with a series of blocks and clean passes, asserting himself in the paint. But this wasn't going to stay a basketball game for long. The energy was electric, the stakes were sky-high, and every player knew that emotions were bubbling just beneath the surface. As the minutes ticked by, bodies collided harder, elbows flew a little higher, and glares lasted a little longer. The Celtics and Lakers had history, and that history was about to explode. Bird was fighting for every inch of the court. Every time Kareem or Magic tried to drive inside, Larry was there to disrupt, to challenge, to remind them they were in Boston territory. At one point, Kareem tried to overpower Bird, only to be met with fierce resistance. That's when the frustration started to show. With every missed call, with every no-foul whistle, tension began to crackle. Kareem, normally calm and composed, started looking at the refs, arms raised in disbelief. Bird, never one to back down, kept pushing, diving, scoring, and talking. The intensity between these two legends was reaching a boiling point, and everyone watching knew something big was about to happen. Then came the moment that sparked it all. A brutal collision. Rambis hit the floor hard after being decked by two Celtics, and the benches emptied. It was chaos. Kareem's temper flared, and when he locked eyes with Larry Bird, things turned personal. Words were exchanged, and suddenly, Kareem swung an elbow. Larry stepped in, not backing off. The two giants of the game stood jaw to jaw, and for a brief second, the arena held its breath. This was no longer just about basketball. It was about pride, legacy, and dominance. Kareem had made it personal, and Larry Bird was not going to forget it. Section 1 ends with the court boiling over and both teams realizing this series was far from just a game. It was war. The tension had finally snapped. What started as a physical game was now spiraling into an emotional battlefield. After Kurt Rambis was slammed to the ground by Kevin McHale and Gerald Henderson on a fast break, both benches erupted. Players stormed the court. Coaches rushed in to separate bodies. The crowd was roaring, not just in excitement, but in disbelief. This wasn't basketball anymore. This was war in green and gold. And in the middle of that storm stood Larry Bird and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. What happened next became one of the most iconic moments in NBA Finals history. As the play resumed and the officials tried to regain control, Kareem was clearly boiling. The frustration of missed calls, the pressure of the finals, and the non-stop physicality finally boiled over. On a rebound play under the rim, Kareem threw a sharp elbow, and it landed right into Bird's chest. But Larry Bird didn't flinch. Instead, he turned, eyes locked onto Kareem's. There were no words at first, just a stare that could cut through steel. Then, Larry stepped up, right into Kareem's face. The two legends stood eye to eye, chest to chest, jaw to jaw, like gladiators ready for the next swing. Teammates scrambled to pull them apart, but for a second, it felt like neither of them was willing to back down. Larry wasn't just upset because of the elbow. He was furious because of what it symbolized. To him, that elbow wasn't just a cheap shot, it was disrespect. And Larry Bird never tolerated disrespect. Especially not on the biggest stage, in front of the world, in the middle of a championship war. Kareem, for all his greatness, had underestimated the fire burning inside Larry Bird. The Lakers may have had flash, they may have had magic, but Boston had grit. And Bird was the embodiment of that grit. The next few possessions were a statement. Bird didn't just play, he attacked. He went for rebounds like a man possessed. He took shots without hesitation. He drove into the paint like it was personal. On one possession, he sank a long-range jumper over Cooper with such confidence that even the Lakers bench paused. On the next, he dished a bullet pass inside, threading it through traffic as if he were slicing through paper. Boston wasn't just fighting back, they were taking over. Kareem tried to regain control. He called for the ball, demanded it in the post, and used his signature skyhook. But it was no longer about skills alone. It was about mental warfare now, and Larry Bird had all the momentum. Then, just when it looked like Kareem was starting to find rhythm again, disaster struck. In a scramble under the basket, with Robert Parrish and McHale pressing hard, Kareem picked up his sixth foul. Just like that, he was out of the game. The crowd exploded. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, the anchor, the legend, the one who was supposed to bring LA the title, had fouled out. And you could see it in his eyes, regret. Not just about the elbow, but about everything that had come after. Because while Kareem had tried to shake Bird's composure, it was Bird who had rattled Kareem's legacy. As Kareem walked off the court, the cameras zoomed in on Larry Bird. No celebration. No trash talk. Just cold, hard focus. He knew the job wasn't done. But he also knew something else. This war had shifted. And Boston had just taken the high ground. With Kareem Abdul-Jabbar fouled out and the Lakers suddenly vulnerable, the momentum of the entire game shifted like a thunderclap. For Boston, it was the perfect storm. And at the eye of that storm stood Larry Bird, unfazed, locked in, and ready to finish what he started. From the moment Kareem walked off the court, you could feel it. The crowd, the Celtics, even the Lakers. They all knew something had changed. Larry Bird wasn't just playing to win anymore. He was playing to send a message. That elbow. That disrespect. That moment where Kareem thought he could knock him down and walk away from it. That wasn't going to be forgotten. Not by Bird. Not by Boston. Not by history. Bird picked up the pace like a machine cranked to life. Every possession began with his fingerprints. Whether it was a high-post screen, a no-look pass, or a mid-range dagger from the baseline, Larry Bird was everywhere. You could see it in his eyes. This was no longer just a game. This was personal redemption in real time. The Lakers tried to hold the line. James Worthy stepped up with quick drives. Magic Johnson tried to take command, directing plays, slowing the tempo. But the Celtics were surging. Dennis Johnson, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish, all found new life under Bird's leadership. Each time the Lakers scored, the Celtics answered right back, and often louder. Then came a series of plays that told the story of the night. Bird launched a three-pointer from deep, and the net barely moved. Just a whisper, the kind of shot that silences doubts and ignites crowds. Moments later, Dennis Johnson hit a turnaround jumper under heavy pressure, and the Celtics were only down by a single possession. The crowd roared with every play. They weren't just watching a comeback, they were witnessing a legendary counterattack. And with the clock winding down, Boston refused to quit. McHale blocked Worthy at the rim. Parrish grabbed rebound after rebound, outmuscling LA in the paint. Bird, as always, was in the thick of it, tipping balls, drawing fouls, finding impossible passing lanes like he was reading the game a second ahead of everyone else. As the fourth quarter slipped into its final moments, the game was tied. The Celtics had clawed back from behind. It was no longer about who had the better lineup or deeper bench, it was about who had more heart. And heart. That belonged to Larry Bird. But fate had one more twist. With just seconds remaining on the clock, and a chance to win it in regulation, Larry Bird took the final shot. The ball left his hand, the crowd held their breath, and it missed. For one moment, silence. McHale tried to follow up, but that too was off target. Overtime. The battle would go on. But here's the truth, even though the scoreboard said tie, the psychological war was already tilting in Boston's favor. Because the Lakers were tired. Kareem was gone. And Bird was just getting warmed up. In that moment, going into overtime, it was clear to everyone watching, the Celtics weren't just trying to win the game. They were out to take the soul of the Lakers. Overtime had begun. The crowd was electric. The Celtics had clawed their way back, and now they smelled blood. The Lakers, without Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, were on the ropes. It was no longer a question of talent. It was a test of will, of leadership, of legacy. And at the center of that test stood Larry Bird. He had taken the hits. He had taken the disrespect. And now, he was about to take the game. The Celtics came out swinging. Dennis Johnson hit the first shot of overtime, a beautiful jumper that set the tone. Bird followed it up with a tough inside basket, muscling through the defense, finishing at the rim. Boston had taken the lead. And now they had the momentum, the rhythm, and the belief that this game, this war, was theirs to win. Meanwhile, the Lakers struggled. Magic Johnson, usually cool and collected, looked rushed. Passes that were once sharp became frantic. The offense, without Kareem anchoring the post, lacked its center of gravity. The Celtics smelled that weakness, and they went for the kill. Kevin McHale, already a monster on defense, began shutting down the lane. Robert Parrish turned into a rebounding machine, snatching every loose ball like it was the last possession of his life. And then, there was Bird, orchestrating everything, like a maestro conducting chaos. With the clock ticking down, Bird kept finding ways to hurt the Lakers. Sometimes it was a smart pass to the corner. Sometimes it was a mid-range jumper that cut through the tension like a blade. And sometimes, it was just presence. That unshakable presence that told everyone in the arena, this man will not lose. Then came one of the defining moments of the game. James Worthy had the ball with 10 seconds left. The Lakers were down by one possession. They still had a chance. But as Worthy moved up the court, looking to make something happen, he was met by ML Carr. One wrong step, one misjudged pass, and Carr stole the ball clean. The Boston crowd exploded. The Lakers' hope vanished in a single instant. Carr drew the foul. The scoreboard lit up. And just like that, the Celtics had a 5-point lead with only 3 seconds remaining. The game was over. The war was won. As the buzzer sounded, the Boston Celtics had done more than just win Game 4. They had evened the series at 2-2. But more importantly, they had broken the spirit of their greatest rivals. And Larry Bird had led the charge. And somewhere, watching the final seconds tick away, was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, sitting on the bench, fouled out, helpless. The same man who had thrown the elbow. Who had tried to intimidate. Who thought for a moment that Larry Bird could be shaken. But what Kareem learned that night, what the entire world saw that night, was simple. You don't disrespect Larry Bird and expect to walk away untouched. That game became more than just a chapter in NBA history. It became a symbol. A reminder that greatness isn't measured by one elbow, one foul, or one big play. It's measured by how you respond, how you rise, and how you refuse to back down. Larry Bird didn't just win that game. He earned the respect of millions, silenced doubters, and sealed his legend in the heart of basketball forever. As for Kareem, he walked away with more than just a loss. He walked away with regret.